One of the first big misses of the year in gaming is coming out in a few short hours. Yes, Avowed from Obsidian Studios is set to drop on early access side of things, and well, it's going to be interesting to see how many people are partaking in this. I mean, given just the lucrative incentives that have been offered, I mean, you can download the game and get 2 skins. I mean, is it going to be the next Skyrim? Oh, you get 4 days early? See, it's going to be so great. So if you want to check out and see what knockoff Bethesda has been up to for a minute, well, I guess you're willing to pay a premium by the looks of it. Not exactly setting the world on fire, but it's so crazy, right? Because all of the wind of this game ended up getting, the wind in its sails ended up getting sucked out by an overly avarice art director at the end of last year, and well, it really hasn't recouped any because we've seen more gameplay and it looks like Bargain Basement, not Skyrim, maybe Oblivion if we're lucky. But hey, we'll be able to see how bad things have really gotten for it, because in everything that we've been hit with, and that's implying that there's been quite a bit, but the marketing for this game has been subdued, to say the least. It's kind of like with all of the first party, outside of like Doom. Microsoft does a really terrible job with their first party titles, just getting the word out there for them. Like a couple years back, or was that last year, when Hellblade 2 came out, and there was like one tweet when it was pressured by a bunch of people going, hey, you got a game coming out in a couple of days, and they're like, fine, we'll just reluctantly retweet something. But Xbox, I mean, they had that developers direct at the end of January, but they haven't done anything to big up one of their big first party releases, their first of the year. It's like, do you guys really know how bad things are? Is that what we're going with? Are you just hoping that Obsidian can really turn it around for Outer Worlds Part 2? Outer Wilds is a good one. Outer Worlds was the bad one that Obsidian did, that had a giant fall off in the aftermath. But don't worry, they'll pull it around the second time around. That's going to end up working for them. But the third party marketing, at least from the slop and access outlets, it's been very interesting, because we have seen this approach before, and well, it didn't work out well for that game. So who knows, man? Maybe the second time's a charm, right? So what time does Avowed release in early access, and is it on Game Pass? So yeah, we're never fully going to understand the full extent of this game's failure, because unlike previous releases, yes, this is going to come out on Game Pass as well, and that in and of itself kind of mitigates some of the failure. And so you can have some of the people out there run cope, like we've seen the Indiana Jones game, which just disappeared into the ether. Oh, it was so good, nobody wanted to talk about it a week afterwards. Yeah, fantastic. But even if there is abysmal Steam numbers for Avowed, there can be the freaks out there coping, saying, oh, no, it's just people were playing on Game Pass. Don't worry, bro, it was super popular. You're just adding an additional step for us to figure out is like just how much of a flop this game was. But I digress. Avowed releases in early access on Windows PC and Xbox Series X on Thursday, February 13th. Yes, tomorrow. We'll know 5 days ahead of its full release at Tuesday, February 18th. It's so funny, right? Because one of the first big bombs, which I'm just earmarking this one because I don't think it's going to be good, okay? And I don't think word of mouth of this is going to be that fantastic, because like I said before, we're seeing some of the warning signs manifest. But this game dropping in early access on Thursday, the 13th, is just a day before one of the first big flops in Hollywood with Captain America: Brave New World. It's kind of strange how these failures tend to run in pairs, right? Set in the Pillars of Eternity universe of Aora, Avowed sends you on an adventure around the Living Lands region as long as you own a Windows PC and Xbox Series X. Unfortunately, I guess this is one of the games that I guess PlayStation 5 fanboys are thankful that they get to dodge, because it won't be there on launch, but you'll be able to play Forza 5, and depending on that state of play that's coming out, at least the time of recording, tomorrow, but today when you guys are watching this video, maybe you'll have other Microsoft exclusives coming over, because I don't really know what they're going to announce at that state of play that's like 40 minutes long, but we'll probably get to it before the weekend's through if there's anything important that's on it. I'd imagine probably some Ghosts of Yotei information, which is going to be juicy in and of itself. But yeah, man, check out the early access period for Avowed if you want to, shill out a premium and you want to get a cool skin, I guess. But like I said, what they're really pushing on this game is realistic graphics and a character creator. Oh shit, we've seen this before, huh? This really is Dragon Age the Veilguard, because yeah, you've got these SSRIs characters. Like, just look at these vacant stares with the flowers and the funky hair colors. It's like, cool, this is what you're going with. Avowed shows off its character creator and the backgrounds that will shape how the world responds to you, which is, oh yeah, exactly, if you have a certain melanin count. It's like that old hack joke where, yeah, you choose to play as a black character, you play on, default hard mode, because that's accurate. Real life in the past, what, 60, 70 years. Like, if this was a racing game and you had to press the pedals from the back seat, that would be one thing, but this is a fantasy world, and how the world responds to you, well, I would understand, right? Like, if there were different, like, actually different races, except for, freaks with pedals, or, I don't know, parasites coming out of their forehead. Like, if they look at that and go, dude, Jesus, what the hell is going on here? Like, that would be one thing. But I think we kind of know where all of these hacks are going, right? But we'll see. We'll see. Avowed will not only let you customize your character's appearance, but also the background that will shape how the world perceives and responds to you. In a series of posts on X, Obsidian let fans in on for an early peek of the fantasy RPG's character creation menu, where players can choose between Arcade Scholar, Court Jour, Vanguard Scout, War Hero, and Noble Scion, all of which determine the dialogue options and starting weapons you'll have available to you when you kick off your adventure. Oh, okay, cool. So this is almost like what you used to get when these types of RPGs were in their formative states and were actually good. Like, I can just harken back to original Mass Effect, where you could go ahead and be a soldier, or you could be an adept, you could be a vanguard, you could have access to tech abilities or biotic abilities, or you could just be a run and gunner. There was a bunch of different things that you could do. So, okay, cool, that's interesting. You hail from the Adarian Empire, but who exactly are you, Envoy? Obsidian teased on social media, thanks to The Gamer. Stranger still, you will have never learned which god touched your soul. Yeah, no, this all sounds very fruity and highfalutin, and yeah, if it was in a better game, crafted by better people with more stable minds, I would be a little bit more interested, because this game could have been good, man, but everything that we're seeing out of it, it ain't it. Okay, Avowed not being an open world. Oh, okay, cool. So you get to explore this world on rails. Now, normally these big, open, empty worlds, I don't necessarily think is a good thing. I don't think that necessarily makes an RPG or breaks an RPG if you can't go out there and explore to your heart's content. If there's a curated vision that the developers have in mind when they're crafting a game world, I'm totally fine with that. If it's not just, go and experience a bunch of side quests to your heart's content. It's just, how good is the gameplay going to be? What type of narrative are you walking people through? And if it's this hand-holdy, how much are those dialogue options really going to play into the overall story? On Microsoft's next big game, the RPG Avowed, from Outer Worlds developer Obsidian. Why don't you put it like the games that people actually like KOTOR 2 and Fallout New Vegas, like Outer Worlds, yeah, that one, it was liked for a minute, but it fell off hard. And it's coming out in February, yes, and tomorrow, in fact, for early access people. Unlike some of Obsidian's other RPGs, Avowed is not an open world game. This serves the game best, Avowed's region director, Berto Rittger, said. Avowed features large, defined zones as opposed to taking place in an open world. Okay, Rittger said, having established the distinct zone is a good pacing mechanism for the player's choice, for the choices players make. We know roughly, what you've done before you're gone, what you've gone to do the next thing. It's still a very open structure within those zones, where you can do whatever you want for the most part, but it's not one contiguous area where you could be anywhere at any moment. And like I said, that's not a detriment, at least for me. You have large defined zones where you can go ahead and do the side content and then progress through the main story as much as you want. You're going off to different islands, different areas that would be walled off by natural landmarks. That's fine, okay? Like, you don't have means of like air travel or anything like that makes sense in the world that you're trying to immerse people in. That totally makes sense. It's just the world that you're immersing people in, it damn well better be good. Once again, we're falling into another type of modern game trapping where they're releasing a game that's just not finished, just not polished. And if this is exposed in the early access period by enough of the people willing to test out this game, it's going to secure its dud status. Avowed director confirms the game is a complete janky mess right now, which is so fantastic. Yeah, go ahead and buy into the early access period where you could go ahead and beta test the game for us. So what are you doing? Avowed director warns of launch riddled with bugs, and the game comes out, yes, well, tomorrow. Okay. Recent interview with MinMax on the YouTube channel, Avowed director and a senior narrative designer Carrie Patel made a pretty wild statement that sparked or reinforced, depending on where you stand on the game, concern among gamers everywhere. Patel went on to openly acknowledge that Avowed, a once highly anticipated RPG coming from Obsidian Entertainment, is going to be launching with some degree of jank, the kind of unexpected glitches that can and do seriously interfere with the overall gameplay experience. Now, that used to be some of the charm, some of the aesthetic of your Bethesda titles, and hell, I seem to recall on release, like Fallout New Vegas, for as much as it was a return to some of the more traditional Fallout storytelling, it was a pretty buggy mess to begin with, so it's not like Obsidian has really tightened up their development in recent years, but the charm of Bethesda games in the early 2010s, like, it was mitigated because they knew that, yeah, we'll release it on PC and modders would take care of that stuff. We made a nice enough sandbox for everybody to play in, but at this point in time, that shit is getting long in the tooth. Like, it's fun to mod games, it's fun to screw around, but at this point in time, if you're going to be spending all of this money and you're going to be properly curating everything so much and you're so entrenched in the narrative and you think that it's, you know, really important that we need to hear this high school level drama production that you guys are writing down in crayon, if that's really important to you guys, you better make sure to cross the T's and dot the I's. While I appreciate the honesty, if you want to call it that, minor technical issues are often forgiven in sprawling RPGs. Her comments sound far more concerning. Well, what exactly are those comments? Okay. Casual way, Patel framed this all as almost inevitable, has set off alarm bells, and not just with myself, but the entire gaming community. Pair this with multiple insiders that have been communicating to me over the past few months. This is Smash JT's article, by the way, shout out, who are directly affiliated with some way with Obsidian Entertainment. There are fairly low expectations for how the game is going to be received overall by the entire gaming community at large. Patel attempts to explain how little jank is necessary for the fun and creative experience, implying that these bugs are actually somehow features. Yeah, you fall through the world, that's fine, because you got a flower petal on your head. That's great, right? It's a good trade-off. But yes, which I gotta be honest, I couldn't help but chuckle when I heard, considering the recent industry trends of launching completely broken, incomplete games. Her statement feels far less of playful jokes and far more like attempting to soften the inevitable blow of what sounds like is going to be an extremely deeply flawed product. And yeah, if there wasn't the controversy around this of, you know, pronouns and your character selection and an art director who is absolutely ideologically possessed, you might be able to forgive it, or it might be a little bit more passable. People could fire it up, and if, yeah, there's some graphical issues, like there's some pop-in, there's a little bit of stutter, you can go ahead and you can kind of forgive that, because eventually, you know, that stuff's going to get cleaned up. And while at this point in time where you got games that are costing hundreds of millions of dollars, you would think that they'd have that done and dusted, but that's also another folly of today's gaming environment. It was passable beforehand, and one of the biggest games of all time was a buggy, dilapidated mess when it debuted, 11/11/11/11. But now we're, 13 and a half years removed from that, and people are just, like, they're just done with this stuff, okay? Because we had, yes, janky, just kind of quirky releases like Star Wars Outlaws, and that game died a swift death. You can't release games that are broken, okay? I can't believe that we have to have this conversation, but that's where we're at. We have these lazy developers who think that just by the sheer virtue of them working at a once-renowned studio, they'll go ahead and forgive their shortcomings when it comes to programming. They think that they can just coast along on their successes of years gone by, but when you take a look, and we have, of Obsidian's recent track record, it's not great. Everything that they remember them from, and the reason that people understand and recognize the name Obsidian, that stuff is from over a decade ago at this point in time. Gaming is very much, what have you done for me lately? And when it comes to Xbox and Microsoft over the top, being your parent company, if you underperform, or if you don't overperform hard enough, your studio's going to get shut down. Okay, well, Patel's comments alone might have raised some eyebrows. I've been contacted by, Smash JT has been contacted by multiple insiders over the past few weeks regarding Avowed and Obsidian Entertainment's internal atmosphere. The sources, yes, there he is, okay, who have been who have asked to remain anonymous, paint a troubling picture of the game's current state and the studio's overall direction. Yeah, the biggest damning info he's heard. Even those working intimately on the game don't seem to have much confidence in it whatsoever, but Matt Hansen does, okay? So much so that he's looking for his replacement, as long as he has a sufficient melanin quota. Yeah, man, it's just going to be... Even if the game flops, even if it gets a few thousand concurrent players on Steam, which I don't really know, man, is it going to... I don't think that it does any more than 20,000 concurrent players on Steam. I think that would be stretching. I think if there's enough people knowing, yeah, it's going to be on Game Pass. If I want to try it, I'll just give it a whirl over there. But that's a big problem with a lot of games coming out right now. They know that they're just going to be content for a streaming service, which is also a problem in Hollywood as well. So until we get out of this death spiral, because we see that I don't think Game Pass is going to be long for this world, for as much as it's a benefit and a real boon for consumers. Microsoft is still trying to make money at the end of the day, and while they have more money than just about every other company in the entire world combined, they're eventually going to have to look over at this great big money sieve and realize, yeah, you guys need to start turning a profit. Otherwise, we're going to have to start going in different directions. It'll be interesting to see what the response to Avowed is, because we've heard the shills now for months on end saying, oh guys, this one's going to be great, trust us, this isn't another case of Dragon Age the Veilguard, this one's going to be different. It's like, yeah, focusing on the character creator, creatives behind the scenes that are absolute ideologues. Yep, we've been here before, and we've seen the shills come out in defense for it. So yeah, anticipating the worst, hoping for the best, but in actuality, probably going to be somewhere in the middle. So with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.